The pen was already touching the paper when rain began falling upward outside my father's dining room. Not drifting sideways, not swirling in the wind, falling upward in thin silver lines from the marble courtyard toward a cloudless afternoon sky. I stopped breathing. 5 years earlier, I had seen the same thing through the reinforced window of a flooded maintenance tunnel, 12 minutes before the red rain tore through Aroko City's water grid and killed me. Now I was sitting beneath a chandelier shaped like a golden crown, surrounded by the family that had framed me for that disaster. My right hand held a fountain pen. My left rested on a land transfer agreement. Across the table, my half-brother Damie smiled as if he had already won. I knew the date, I knew the room, I knew the document. Somehow, I had returned to the afternoon when I gave away my mother's farm. I was Tobi Cole, 28 years old again, the unwanted first son of Aroko Cole and the family's invisible environmental analyst. In 12 minutes, Damie would provoke me, throw himself into a glass cabinet and accuse me of attacking him. My father would use the scandal to declare me unstable. I would sign away the last thing my mother had left me. In the first timeline, I had spent 5 more years believing obedience would earn me a place in the family. It earned me a locked tunnel and 30,000 tons of poisoned water. Damie tapped the page. You only need to sign, brother. 3.2 acres in Crown Hill is too important to waste on weeds and goats. It is a farm, I said. It is mud between 6 office towers. My stepmother, Bissy, gave me the soft expression she used whenever she wanted to sound kind in front of witnesses. Nobody is taking anything from you, Tobi. The Green Crown Project will create 2,400 jobs. Your father is offering you a generous apartment and a position in the new company. A position. In my old life, that position had involved writing reports Damie signed, correcting failures he caused, and accepting blame whenever the board wanted a disposable surname. My father leaned forward, sign it. The upward rain stopped. 11 minutes. I lifted the pen, and Damie's smile widened. Then I placed it beside the document. No. The room went so quiet I heard the air conditioning charm click inside the wall. Damie blinked, no. I am not transferring last green farm. Bayo's face tightened. The land has been sitting idle since your mother died. You mean since you removed every worker, canceled its water permit, and told the banks it was tied up in an inheritance dispute? Bissy's kindness vanished for half a second. That was enough. In my first life, I had noticed that expression too late. Damie pushed back his chair. Careful, Tobi. I took out my phone and placed it on the table with the recording screen facing up. He stopped. That had not happened before. I scrolled to a document I had prepared every month for 3 years, a personal work log containing dates, project numbers, and the names of reports I had written for Cole Crown Group. In the first timeline, I had kept it private because I thought exposing Damie would hurt the family. Death had cured me of that particular illness. I will sign one thing, I said. A statement confirming that I am leaving this house voluntarily with my personal property and that I accept no employment obligations to Cole Crown Group. My father laughed once. There was no humor in it. You walk out of this house, and every company in Aroko will know you are unreliable. I remember. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Bale stared at me. I corrected myself. I understand. Damie moved around the table. In the old timeline, this was where he had leaned close and whispered that our father would never choose me. I had shoved him. He had done the rest. This time I remained seated. He bent beside me and spoke softly. You think that little farm will save you? No, I said. I think it might save everyone else. He laughed because he did not understand. To be fair, neither did I. Not yet. I left the Cole mansion with one suitcase, 6,000 naira in cash, my mother's old brass seed scale, and Pepper, the black and white goat Damie had ordered the groundskeeper to remove because Pepper had eaten 3 imported lilies and half a ceremonial ribbon. Pepper climbed into the back of the hired tricycle without being invited. The driver looked at him, looked at me, and said, "The goat pays separately." That was how my second life began. Blacklisted, nearly broke, headed toward a dead farm and negotiating transport fees for an animal with no respect for currency. Last Green Farm occupied 3.2 acres in central Crown Hill, where 1 square meter cost more than most people earned in a year. Glass towers surrounded brown soil, collapsed sheds, weeds, and 1 stubborn mango tree. Pepper ignored the healthy grass and chewed my eviction notice. "You are the only goat in Nigeria who refuses free food," I told him. A woman in orange coveralls stood beside a broken irrigation pipe. Her hair was tied with blue cloth, and a pressure wand hovered above a crack in the ground. Amara Akin. In my first life, she had warned me that coal crown pipes were draining River Ward. I accused her of sabotage. 4 years later, she died evacuating a flooded clinic while I still defended the people preparing to frame me. Seeing her alive hurt more than dying had. She noticed me staring. "Are you the owner, the developer, or another lawyer pretending this farm has no owner?" "I am Tobi Cole." Her expression cooled. "Then you are all 3 problems at once." She pointed at the pipe. "Someone installed an illegal 6-inch line beneath your land. It is pulling from the municipal grid." Cole Crown Group. You said that quickly. I know their methods. Yet you worked for them. Knowing her future did not earn her present trust. "Can it be closed?" I asked. "Not until I know where it leads. A pressure spike could rupture the line under River Ward." "Help me map it." "Why?" Because she had died fixing what I ignored. Because the red rain would become lethal in 21 days. Instead, I said, because the city has less time than it thinks. That is either serious or dramatic. With my family, usually both. She did not agree to help, but she did not leave. Inside the farmhouse, dust covered my mother's shelves. A photograph showed her beside Sanny Bello, the surveyor who drew Aroko's first underground rain maps. She held the same brass seed scale I carried from the mansion. I placed it on the table. Green numbers appeared across the metal. Soil balance, 61. Water purity, 42. Root pressure, 73. Soil debt, 0. Root ledger bound to Lara Cole Air. The ledger did not speak. It displayed measurements and instructions only I could see. When I held the scale too long, cold spread through my fingers and my mouth went dry. Whatever powered it was drawing heat and water from my body, which meant the farm could not simply produce miracles while I stood nearby looking important. A second symbol showed a sealed storage space, but it remained locked. 3 successful harvests were required, and only crops or tools I had personally handled could enter it. Money, contracts, and living creatures were excluded. Pepper stepped onto the scale while I tested it. Nothing happened, which was probably the first sensible decision the magic made. Awaken one-crop family. Required, real seed, direct LABOUR, clean water. Community share, 30%. Then came the warning. Soil debt above 100 will break central rain seal. Amara appeared in the doorway. "You look like the table insulted you." I covered the scale. My first mistake in my new life came immediately. "Dust," I said. "I swallowed dust." She looked around. "That is the most believable thing you have said." Damie's blacklist covered banks, major suppliers, and businesses that wanted invitations to Crown Hill dinners. It did not cover Mama Joy's stall at Sun Market, where cash and gossip were accepted equally. I bought 24 water yam seedlings, 2 hoes, a watering can, and compost strong enough to qualify as a weapon. When I returned, Amara had traced the illegal line to a sealed chamber beneath the farm. She stared at the seedlings. You plan to grow yams between 2 banks and a luxury hotel. Yes. Your family may have a point about you. I planted the first mound myself. Water yam awakening active. Growth period, 72 hours. Soil debt estimate, 8219. For the first time since returning, I felt something other than rage. I felt afraid of hope. I failed the first planting before sunset. The leaves curled inward. I had arranged the yams in perfect rows while the illegal pipe heated the northern soil and starved the southern side. I can fix it, I told Amara. You can lose half the seedlings alone or admit you need help. I can fix it. Then I will enjoy watching. She lasted 4 minutes before taking the hoe from me. We replanted in a crescent around the cooler ground. She adjusted the water. I used the ledger to place compost where nutrients were weakest. Pepper supervised from the shade and ate the fertilizer label. At dawn, 18 mounds survived. The first root emerged transparent as blue glass, with mist moving inside it. Rain root. Capacity, 800 litres. Function, absorb, purify, preserve. Limitation, recharge in living soil. Dirty pipe water leapt toward it. 10 seconds later, clear water dripped from the lower tip. Amara tasted 1 drop. I grabbed her wrist. Do not drink unknown magic from the ground. You grew unknown magic from the ground. That is different. It is the same foolishness with farming. A hospital officer paid 8 million naira for 6 roots after licensed appraisers confirmed they removed bacteria, heavy metals, and monocorrosion. A hotel offered twice as much for the other 12. I refused. We installed 6 at River Ward Clinic and 6 beside communal tanks. Amara made me label each one with its 800-liter limit and 12-hour soil recharge period. She refused to let the public treat a useful tool as a divine object, and she refused to let me treat generosity as an excuse for poor maintenance. The first tank filled with water that had entered brown and foul-smelling. Children waited with containers while a clinic worker tested the purified output 3 times. Only when every reading came back clean did Amara step aside. An old woman asked what the water would cost. Nothing, I said. Nothing today, or nothing until politicians arrive. Nothing while the roots are mine. The answer sounded more controlling than generous, but she nodded. Community share, 66.7%. Soil debt, 14. Next crop unlocked. That night, Tobi called. I heard you sold Cole Crown prototypes. They grew on my land. You expect me to believe that? You may buy one at market price. The transfer offer expires tomorrow. So does fresh fish. I'm not signing either. The next morning, 3 suppliers canceled my orders, 2 banks rejected me, and a machinery company returned my deposit because of an unexplained compliance problem. Tobi had stopped seeing me as labor. Now he saw competition. I bought tubing from repair yards, compost from backyard growers, and tools from a mechanic who accepted half payment in clean water. Small businesses were costly and unpredictable, but they had little reason to fear my father. My next crop was okra. The ledger required exact spacing and 6-hour irrigation. Amara wanted to wait until we mapped the chamber below us. We have 19 days, I said. To what? To prove the farm is in active use. It was true, just not the important truth. One day, she said, you will learn that answering a different question is still lying. 3 days later, a municipal pressure line exploded 2 streets away. 5 workers staggered through our gate with red mana burns spreading along their arms. The first stage of the future disaster had begun 5 days earlier than the public warnings in my memory. Either my return had changed more than I expected, or someone had increased the pressure already. I touched the brass scale. Cold shot to my elbow, and the ledger identified the burns as corrosive rain mana exposure. The okra was not fully mature, and harvesting it early would reduce the yield by 40%. Waiting would leave 5 men unable to breathe. For once, the decision was easy. The immature okra pod split open, revealing silver-green gel. Apply within 90 seconds. Amara crushed the pods and treated the workers while I called emergency healers. By the time the ambulance arrived, their breathing had stabilized. Someone filmed everything. By sunset, half of Aroko had watched me standing beside glowing okra while Pepper ate a reporter's sleeve. The headline named me the miracle farmer of Crown Hill. I hated it immediately. Damie hated it more. Fame brought customers, reporters, investors, government inspectors, 3 marriage proposals, and a man who tried to sell me counterfeit seeds from a plant that did not exist. It also brought people who genuinely needed help. The okra gel treated mana burns, reduced fever, and stabilized exhausted healers, but it could not regrow tissue, cure ordinary infections, or replace a hospital. I repeated that in every interview. The edited clips always removed the word "not." Aroko decided I had grown a universal cure. Amara found this hilarious until a businessman arrived asking whether the gel could restore his hairline. "It is damaged tissue," he argued. "It is poor judgment," she replied. Pepper ate his silk pocket square while we were speaking. The second harvest raised soil debt to 37. The root ledger unlocked a limited storage chamber after I completed 1 additional ordinary harvest of cowpea. The storage could hold only farm products and tools I had personally used. I tested it with a hoe, 3 okra pods, and one of Damie's legal notices. The hoe vanished. The okra vanished. The legal notice remained on the table. Pepper ate it. Even the magic had standards. For 10 days, Last Green Farm became a crowded workshop. Amara supervised irrigation. I analyzed soil patterns. Sanny Bello arrived after seeing the news and stood at the gate for nearly a minute without speaking. He was 71, thin, and still wore the same brown cap from the photograph in the farmhouse. "You have Lara's eyes when you are worried," he said. "I am not worried." "Then you have Bayo's talent for lying." He handed me a roll of old survey maps. My mother had marked 7 underground wells beneath Aroko. Lines connected them beneath roads, markets, hospitals, and residential districts. Last Green Farm sat at the center. "Why did she never show me this?" I asked. "She tried. You were 16 and more interested in leaving the farm than understanding it." That was also fair. In my first timeline, I had turned my mother into a symbol of everything stolen from me. Symbols were convenient. They could not contradict you. Sanny tapped a red mark beneath Crown Hill. "Someone reopened this pressure channel 3 months ago." "Cole Crown." "Probably, but not carelessly. Whoever designed the diversion understood the old network." That sounded like Damie. He was not an engineer, but he hired competent people and listened just enough to become dangerous. 2 days later, he announced the Green Crown project from a stage overlooking Crown Hill. His presentation was excellent. He promised affordable enchanted food, 8 residential towers, a medical garden, a storm-powered transport hub, and 2,400 protected jobs. He also announced that Cole Crown Group had developed a method for awakening agricultural materials at industrial scale. On the screen behind him appeared a field of pale maize growing inside a warehouse. "My method." Not exactly. They had copied the visible planting pattern from public footage, then replaced living soil with nutrient tanks and forced mana through the roots. The maize looked healthy. The pressure readings in the background did not. Amara saw it too. Those tanks are pulling from the rain grid. They will overheat. Then say it publicly. I need proof. You have the original farm. And Damie has 4 ministers, 12 investors, and a communications department. She folded her arms. You always have a reason to wait until you control the room. That is because rooms are easier to survive when you control them. She did not laugh. Damie's project changed public opinion. People who had celebrated my glowing okra began asking why one man should own land and technology capable of helping the whole city. Some were paid accounts, many were not. A bus driver interviewed on the evening news said, "The miracle farmer is good, but jobs are also good. We cannot drink principles." That sentence stayed with me. Damie was using people's real needs, not inventing them. Cole Crown Group was carrying enormous debt. If Green Crown failed, thousands could lose their income. I had known the company collapsed after the Red Rain disaster, but I had never understood how close it already was. Damie called again. "This does not need to become a war," he said. "You copied my work. I scaled an idea you were wasting. You are draining public water into private tanks. I am building a system that can feed 9 million people. With untested routes. With deadlines, the world has those." He was wrong but not foolish. That made him more dangerous than the brother I remembered. The route ledger displayed a new crop symbol, maize surrounded by blue sparks. Storm maize. Potential function, grid conduction. Soil debt estimate, 22,241. Rotation rest period advised, 12 days. We had 13 days before the red rain. A proper rest period would leave us 1 day to repair a citywide network. I chose speed. Amara told me not to. Sani told me my mother had once lost an entire season by forcing the soil. The ledger warned me twice. I planted anyway. The storm maize grew taller than me in 48 hours. Silver fibers ran through the stalks, carrying blue sparks without heat. Each stalk could replace 20 meters of damaged ward line. A transport company offered 180 million naira for half the harvest. Then the southern field turned gray. Color drained from the soil, weeds, and fallen leaves. When I stepped into it, the brass scale became painfully cold. Soil debt, 72. Central rain seal stability, 28%. Projected failure, 9 days. I had moved the disaster forward by 4 days. A hidden seam opened in the scale. Inside was a copper strip etched in my mother's handwriting. The farm does not create value. It converts imbalance. Every harvest must return more life than it removes. Last Green Farm was the regulator for Aroko's 7 rain wells. Its roots absorbed excess pressure, filtered corrupted mana, and redistributed water through living soil. The rain roots had converted contamination into purification. The okra had converted mana burns into healing gel. The storm maize had converted unstable current into conductive fiber. None of it was free. I had been farming the city's accumulated damage. A memory fragment showed my mother entering the central rain chamber during an earlier failure. Bayo shouted for her to wait, but she sealed the gate from inside because someone had to release the pressure manually. My father had not ordered her death. He had buried the truth because admitting the illegal diversion would have destroyed his first major contract. For years, I had imagined revenge against a murderer. The truth gave me a coward. That should have softened my anger. Instead, it made it messier. A murderer could be hated cleanly. A frightened man who loved someone and still chose his reputation over her truth forced me to admit that love and betrayal could occupy the same room. The ledger revealed one more line from my mother. Tobi, balance is not the same as control. I almost laughed. Even dead, she had found a way to correct me. Amara found me in the farmhouse. What happened? The Maize raised the soil debt. How much? 72. What happens at 100? I looked at her. That was answer enough. You knew there was a limit, she said. I did not understand the full consequence. You knew there was a number. Before I could answer, heavy machinery arrived with 3 city vehicles. A man handed me an emergency order giving Cole Crown temporary access to the farm as critical infrastructure. Damie stepped from the first car with 2 engineers, a city solicitor, and a complete pressure survey produced in less than 24 hours. He had not merely called a politician. He had anticipated my legal defense, hired competent specialists, and built a public interest argument around my own success. Your public claims established that these crops affect the water grid. You filed this before the classification meeting. I prepared. He saw the gray soil, and uncertainty crossed his face. What did you do? I almost told him. Then I remembered the tunnel and the forged reports. My silence told him I was afraid. He ordered the excavators forward. Amara stood in their path. You cannot dig without a root pressure survey. The requirement is waived under emergency authority, Damie said. Then the authority is reckless. It is legal. The machines entered. Amara turned to me. Show them the data. If I revealed what I knew, Damie would blame the accelerated failure on me and remove me completely. I need time. No, you need control. She found my notes inside the farmhouse and understood the soil debt had risen after every harvest. You kept planting to get what we needed. You decided what everyone needed without telling anyone what it cost. I wanted to tell her I had watched her die. Instead, I said, I remember what happens when people ignore me. Her face hardened. Then remember what happens when you ignore everyone else. She untied the blue cloth from her hair, placed it beside her pressure wand, and left. Outside, Damie's workers cut the first maize stalk. The ground shuddered. Soil debt, 79. Projected failure, 72 hours. Cole Crown engineers worked through the night. They removed storm maize, rain roots, and half the okra beds. Damie transferred everything to the Green Crown site and connected the roots to his industrial tanks. At 6 in the morning, Aroko's western sky turned pale red. The disaster was no longer approaching quietly. Sanny and I entered the farmhouse through the rear window because city security had sealed the gate. He spread my mother's maps across the floor. You have 3 options, he said. Break the Green Crown pipes, reopen the old root channels, or leave the city. The first could burst the grid, the second takes months, the third is not an option. Then you have no options. You are meant to be encouraging. I am 71. Encouragement is heavy, I travel light. Pepper climbed through the window with a stamped document in his mouth. I pulled it free before he swallowed the seal. It was a supplemental land transfer deed. According to the document, my mother had sold development rights to Cole Crown Group 2 weeks before her death. The signature looked perfect. Pepper sniffed the magical oathmark and backed away. That was unusual. He normally attacked oath ink as if official paperwork had personally offended him. Sanny noticed, let him smell it again. Pepper sneezed and tried to eat the map instead. Sanny scratched the ink with his thumbnail. False oath mixture, bitter resin, real oath ink contains sweet root. The forged deed gave Damie legal access to the chamber, but it also gave me a clue. Someone inside Cole Crown Group had manufactured historical documents using a supplier that still existed. The procurement code in the lower corner matched a shell company I remembered from the future investigation. I searched the public contract registry. The same shell company had supplied emergency seals, pipe sensors, and legal ink to Green Crown. Damie had tied every shortcut to one account. That evidence could destroy him later. It could not stop the rain in 72 hours. At noon, he invited me to the unfinished Green Crown Tower. The top floor overlooked the entire city. Red clouds gathered above the coast. Below us, thousands of workers moved between housing blocks and agricultural tanks. Damie stood beside a model of the completed development. "I know something is wrong," he said. That surprised me. "The tanks are drawing more pressure than projected," he continued. "Two engineers want to shut them down. If I do, the project fails. The company defaults within 10 days. Salaries stop. Contractors collapse. 2,400 direct jobs disappear and probably 6,000 more around them. Then shut it down. You say that because you have 8 million naira and a miracle farm. I say it because the rain will become corrosive within 2 days." He studied my face. "You are certain?" "Yes." He walked to the window. "I can protect Crown Hill. The new diversion gates can push the excess pressure east into River Ward and 3 industrial districts. Nearly 1 million people. Most buildings there are low-rise. Evacuation is possible." I stared at him. In the first timeline, I had believed Damie caused the disaster by accident and framed me afterward. Now I understood. He had known enough to choose where it landed. He placed a contract on the table. Cole Crown would return last Green Farm to me, give me 40% of Green Crown profits, restore my position, and publicly recognize me as co-founder of the agricultural system. In exchange, I would certify the Eastern Diversion as necessary emergency management. "You need my name," I said. "You are the city's miracle farmer. People trust you. You called me unstable 12 days ago. Public opinion is flexible. So is your morality." His jaw tightened. "Do not pretend you are innocent. You harvested that land without understanding it. You accelerated this." He had found the gray soil data. For once, Damie was not merely manipulating me. He was telling the truth. "You made a mistake," he said. "I am offering a way to contain it. By sacrificing people who cannot afford lawyers. By saving the larger system. That is what you told yourself when you locked me in the tunnel." The words slipped out. He went still. For 1 second, I saw genuine fear. "How do you know about the tunnel?" I should have lied. Instead, I said, "Because I died there." He stared at me, and I let him. Perhaps he thought I was mad. Perhaps he believed me. Either way, the balance between us changed. I pushed the contract back. "No." He exhaled slowly. "Then what is your plan?" I did not have one. Not yet. That evening, the root ledger displayed 4 crop symbols together: water yam, cowpea, millet, and bitter leaf. Living rotation. Requirement: 12 distributed sites. Minimum PARTICIPNTS: 1,200. Central owner control: not permitted. The last line felt personal. To stabilize the city, I had to release the planting method publicly. Anyone could use it. No monopoly. No secret advantage. No guarantee that last green farm would remain uniquely valuable. The system had given me exactly one path. It required surrendering the thing I had spent 2 lives trying to protect: control. I recorded the confession at Sun Market because That was where people had first believed in the rain roots. No stage, no family logo, no polished speech. I stood between Mama Joy's seed stall and a man selling storm-chilled oranges while 12 phones streamed live. "My name is Tobi Cole," I began, "and the red rain will become dangerous in 36 hours. People stopped bargaining. I explained the 7 wells, the central rain seal, and the soil debt. I showed photographs of the gray field, pressure readings from Amara's wand and my mother's maps. Then I admitted the part that made my mouth dry. My harvests accelerated the failure. I knew the farm had limits. I did not understand them, and when I began to understand, I hid the danger because I was afraid the land would be taken from me. The crowd changed. Admiration was easy. Disappointment had weight. A reporter asked, "Are you saying the miracle farmer caused the crisis?" "I am saying I contributed to it." Another voice shouted, "Why should anyone trust you now?" "They should not trust me because of a nickname," I said. "They should test the method, check the measurements, and decide whether the evidence is sound." I released the living rotation pattern to every agricultural group, water cooperative, school garden, clinic, and neighborhood association in Aroko. 12 sites had to be planted around the city. Each needed 100 people working in timed shifts. Water yam would absorb contamination. Cowpea would restore nitrogen and root strength. Millet would distribute pressure through shallow soil. Bitter leaf would pull corrosive mana from the air during rainfall. The pattern belonged to everyone the moment I published it. Investors canceled 2 of my pending contracts before I finished speaking. By sunset, the value of exclusive rights to Last Green Farm had dropped sharply. For the first time since my regression, I felt relieved. Amara arrived while volunteers were loading seed bags. She wore different coveralls and no blue cloth in her hair. "I watched your confession," she said. "I was hoping you would. I am still angry. I expected that. You do not get to decide. I have forgiven you because I returned." "I know." That answer surprised both of us. She looked at the planting map. "Your eastern site is wrong. The hospital roof garden is too shallow." "What do you suggest?" "The abandoned football field 3 streets north. It has no irrigation. It has a storm drain and 400 stubborn residents. Better than irrigation. Usually." She tied a fresh strip of blue cloth around her hair. "That was all the forgiveness I received, and it was enough." The next 24 hours became organized chaos. Transport drivers moved seed sacks for free. Schoolchildren filled planting bags. Retired farmers argued with engineers. Engineers discovered retired farmers had been managing water pressure with ditches and cassava ridges longer than most official departments had existed. Mama Joy appointed herself commander of Sun Market Site 3 and renamed every crop after herself. Pepper was assigned to carry nothing and still managed to steal the mayor's ceremonial sash. Sani coordinated the old routes. Amara took control of the water network. I moved between all 12 sites using the ledger to check balance. Each site reduced central pressure by 2 or 3%. Not enough. Damie continued preparing the Green Crown launch. He announced that Cole Crown Group would activate an industrial stabilization system at 9 in the morning, 4 hours before the red rain was projected to become corrosive. His engineers knew the system would protect Crown Hill by forcing pressure east. 2 resigned. 1 sent Amara the internal plans. At 7 the next morning, Bayo came to Last Green Farm alone. He looked smaller without security or a boardroom. "I saw your mother's maps," he said. "You had 5 years to look at them. I did not understand what she built. You understood enough to hide how she died." His face tightened. "I was trying to save the company. There is always a company, a contract, or a family name standing between you and responsibility. I loved her. I believe you. That hurt him more than if I had called him a liar. I continued, love did not make you brave. He looked toward the city. Damie will not stop the launch. Then tell the board what he is doing. The board will remove him. Yes. He is my son. So am I. He closed his eyes. For one foolish second, I hoped he would choose differently. He turned and left without answering. At 8:57, red rain began falling upward over Crown Hill. 3 minutes later, Damie cut power to the municipal safety gates and started the green crown system. The ceremonial ribbon never reached the scissors. Pepper slipped under the barrier, seized one end, and ran across the green crown platform dragging 6 meters of gold fabric. Every camera in Aroko captured Damie chasing a goat. Then the sky opened. Red rain struck the tower and hissed against its wards. Glass darkened, metal smoked, sirens spread across the city. The green crown tanks activated. Soil debt 96. Central seal failure in 18, MINUTES. Our 12 living rotation sites responded. Water yam beds glowed blue, millet bent in circles. Bitter leaf released dark vapor that dissolved corruption in the air. Pressure dropped from 96 to 88, then green crown forced it back to 94. Damie is sending everything east, Amara shouted through my phone. He removed the municipal overrides. The manual controls were beneath last green farm, inside the tunnel where I had died. I reached the farm in 6 minutes. Volunteers remained at their sites, covering young crops and feeding clean water into the roots. Sanny waited beside the chamber door with my mother's copper key. You do not have to go alone, he said. Someone must keep the surface channels open. That sounds like control again. Amara arrived in a maintenance vehicle carrying 2 pressure wands. You should be at the eastern gates, I said. You do not get to choose where I risk myself. We descended together through old clay pipes and modern steel supports. The deeper we went, the more I remembered. My hands against the locked door, Damie's voice through the speaker, water filling my lungs. At the final stair I stopped. This is where I died. Amara touched my shoulder, then let us avoid repeating the design flaw. The central chamber surrounded a living root thicker than a bus. Half its surface was gray. 7 pressure gates circled it. 6 were open. The eastern gate was locked at maximum flow. Damie stood at the control wheel. If I close this, he said, Crown Hill takes the pressure. The foundations fail, Cole Crown collapses. If you leave it open, River Ward loses everything. Evacuation is underway. Not fast enough. He gripped the wheel. You released the planting method, you destroyed its value. I removed the monopoly. You replaced a finance system with volunteers and market women. Yes. He looked offended that the city might survive without belonging to him. Soil debt 98. Seal failure in 7, MINUTES. Amara checked the secondary controls. We must close the eastern gate while all 12 sites reopen their return channels. I can coordinate them. You must activate the ledger too. The scale was already freezing my hand. Large activations drained my body heat, and I had used it at every site. Damie saw me shaking. You cannot do it. Maintain the diversion. For how long? Until everyone outside Crown Hill becomes an acceptable loss. He stepped between me and the wheel. You think refusing power makes you good. It only means someone else uses it. There was enough truth in that to tempt me. I could have kept the ledger secret, owned every crop, and become the good man in control. But the system had shown me where that ended. I do not refuse power, I said. I refuse your belief that power makes every choice yours. Amara counted down. At 5, Damie grabbed the wheel. At 4, the floor cracked. At 3, a surge threw him through the railing. He slipped toward the pressure channel. I caught his wrist. For 1 second, I remembered begging while he chose the company over me. I could have let go. Instead, I pulled. Amara dragged both of us back. 2. Damie stared at me from the floor. 1. I pressed the scale against the root. Every rotation site appeared in my mind as green light. 1,743 people had joined. The system asked for consent from each site, not ownership from me. One by one, they answered. I closed the eastern gate. Amara opened the return channels. The red rain struck Aroko. Then the entire city began to grow. Roots rose through pavement cracks without breaking them. Millet shimmered across football fields. Bitter leaf climbed clinic walls and pulled corruption from the rain. Water yams beneath Sun Market glowed through the soil. The pressure fell from 98 to 86, then 71, then 53. The gray central root turned green. I remember Amara shouting my name. I remember Pepper appearing in the chamber with the remains of the ribbon, though nobody learned how he entered. Then the ledger's cold reached my heart, and I collapsed. I woke 2 days later in River Ward Community Hospital. Pepper was eating a medical invoice. Amara slept beside the bed with blue cloth tied around her wrist. My father stood at the window. "The city is safe," he said. "How many died?" "No deaths from the rain, 37 injuries." In my first life, the official death toll had been 812. What happened to Green Crown? The diversion and Damie's overrides were recorded. Sani gave investigators the forged deed. They traced the ink, seals, and sensors to the same shell company. He lowered his voice. The board removed Damie. "Did you vote for it?" After a pause, he said, "Yes." Late was not meaningless. It was not forgiveness either. Cole Crown entered restructuring. Green Crown was sold to a public housing and water consortium, and the proceeds repaired River Ward and the industrial districts Damie had intended to sacrifice. The company survived, but lost every public infrastructure contract for 7 years. Bayo surrendered control to an independent board. Damie was charged with fraud, reckless endangerment, falsifying reports, and unlawful diversion of public water. He did not beg me to save him. That would have been easier. At the investigation center, he asked, "You could have let me fall. Why did you not?" "Because I did not return to become you." He looked away. "I thought if the company survived, everything else could be repaired." That is what father thought when mother died. He had not known the full truth. For the first time, we were not rival sons competing for approval. We were two people looking at damage caused by the same cowardice. That did not erase his choices. He received a custodial sentence, a permanent ban from public utilities, and an order to repay diverted funds. Executives who assisted him lost their licenses. The engineers who resigned before the launch joined Amara's reconstruction team. The council tried to name the new water program after me. I refused. Mama Joy suggested naming it after herself. Nobody had asked her. Last Green Farm received 99 years of protection. I remained its owner, but 30% of every awakened harvest would support hospitals, public water, and community food projects. The living rotation method remained open to everyone. Farmers adapted it for rooftops, schoolyards, roadside gardens, and village wells. Most crops produced no miracles. They did something better. They made the land stable. Amara became chief engineer of the Restored Rain Network, after demanding 4 of 12 oversight seats for community representatives. Our relationship improved slowly. She still checked every measurement I gave her. I still wanted to hide difficult information until I solved it. Now, I recognize that urge as a problem rather than a personality trait. 3 months later, my father brought my mother's field notebook to the farm. "I kept it," he said. "You hid it." "Yes." He did not defend himself. He asked me to return to the family house. I said no. He asked whether we could speak again someday. "That depends on what you do when nobody is watching." He nodded and left. Revenge had promised a moment when everyone who hurt me would suffer enough to balance the past. Nothing could balance my mother's death or return the years I spent serving people who saw me as a useful signature. Justice did not require me to keep carrying them. The first crop I planted after Aroko recovered was ordinary pepper. No awakening, no glowing roots, no investors. I planted 2 rows while Amara repaired a valve, and Sandy criticized both of us from the shade. Pepper walked past a field of weeds and ate 6 seedlings. I shouted his name. He looked at me with one green leaf hanging from his mouth, and Amara laughed until she had to sit down. The root ledger displayed one line. Soil balance 100. No reward appeared, no treasure grew. For once, nothing extraordinary happened. I stood in my mother's farm, listening to a living city breathe after the rain, and understood my second chance. I had returned believing the soil would help me punish everyone who buried me, but the soil remembered something I had forgotten. A second life is not another harvest unless you leave enough behind for something else to grow.